Hello, good morning everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. This is Ayush Sharma, currently a third year MBBS student at IPG MER and SSKM Hospital, Kolkata. So today I will be covering the topic cell injury and adaptation on behalf of MME, that is Make Medical Easy. Okay, so without wasting much time, let us move further. That is, let us see the topics which will be covered in the sessions. Okay, so number one, we will try to cover cell adaptations, then cell reversible cell injuries, irreversible cell injury, intracellular accumulations, pathologic calcifications, and cellular aging. So the topics won't be covered in a single video. I will make around two or hardly three videos to cover all of the important topics. These topics are not only important for your professional examinations, but for NEET PG, this is also the most important topic. Okay, so now let us move further. So, look now, the whole pathology the whole pathology moves around a single concept. Okay, the concept is it is going to study the cause of the disease. Okay, the cause of the disease and the disease it causes to the cells, organ and the tissues. So what are the effects the disease cause to the cells, tissues and organs? We will look through this. Okay, and the effects will be now manifested in the patient as presenting signs and symptoms. Okay, so this is the general concept. The whole pathology revolves around this thing. So before moving forward, there are two important terminologies which are very crucial to understand the pathology. Number one is your etiology. Okay, this one. So what is etiology? Etiology refers to the underlying causes and modifying factors that are responsible for the initiation and the progression of the disease. Okay, so it is the causes. Thus, etiology refers to why the disease arises, the hidden causes behind the disease. Okay, so any disease is arising. Now I can ask why the disease is arising. What are the causes which are promoting the disease? Okay, so that is basically etiology. Next important terminology is pathogenesis. So pathogenesis refers to the mechanisms of development and progression of disease which account for the cellular and the molecular changes. Okay, so thus pathogenesis describes how the disease develops and the hidden mechanisms behind it. So etiology states why the disease is occurring, and pathogenesis says okay, the disease is occurring, I know that, but how is the disease occurring? What is the mechanism behind it? That is related to pathogenesis. I hope you understand this very clearly. Okay, let us move forward. Okay, now, in pathology, I would be covering all the important images from the Robbins textbook. Okay, so this image is also derived, taken from the basic pathology of Robbins. Okay, let us look at the image. This image is basically telling us about the steps of evolution of a disease. Okay, how the disease is progressing. Like, see, this is a disease and this is the starting point. How is the disease progressing through all the stages? We are looking through this point. So or not all the points are written, some important etiology are given there. Like, see, trauma is an etiology. It is a causating factor of disease, nutritional imbalances, genetic abnormalities, immunologic abnormalities, infections, very important, and toxins. So these are, broadly speaking, few of the important etiological factors. Now, these factors are causing the disease. Now we move to the pathogenesis, that is mechanism of the disease. So inside the cell, inside the tissue, inside the organ, there will be some structural changes and some biochemical changes. Okay, so some molecular, functional and morphologic abnormalities in cells and tissues, which will then manifested as signs and symptoms of the disease. Okay, so starting from the etiology, then we move on to the signs and symptoms of the disease. This is a very important, it can say the important chart I have prepared for you. So let's see. It is telling about the causes of the cell injury. So the most important cause of the injury is hypoxia. You know that hypoxia is basically decreased oxygen supply to the tissues. Okay, broadly speaking, this is a general term. Next, the most important cause of hypoxia is ischemia. You know, ischemia is reduced blood supply. Blood carries oxygen. So when the blood is less, oxygen will be less. So this hypoxia and ischemia can together cause injury to the cell. Next, there can be physical agents like we have read trauma. Next, there can be chemical agents like chemicals. Okay, infectious agents, the infections and the toxins of the microorganisms, they can cause cell injury. Genetic agents like the acquired and congenital. So there are basically two genetic agents. One is acquired and other is congenital. Next is immunologic agents. Okay, and the last one is the nutritional imbalances. Nutritional imbalances can be either deficiency of a nutrient, which is related to like this protein energy malnutrition, it will cause this. And excess of the nutrition can cause obesity. So these are also the causes of the cell injury. Okay, so let's move further. Now, overview of cellular responses to stress and noxious stimuli. Okay, that is the cellular, we are talking about the cellular responses, the responses of the cell to stress and stimulus. So there is any stimulus and there is any stress, so what will be the this thing, cell will respond. See, as the cells encounter physiologic stresses such as increased workload on the heart, okay, or potentially injurious conditions such as nutrient deprivation, they can undergo either of the things. Okay, what are the things? Number one, adaptation. Thus, the cells achieve a new steady state which helps in preserving its viability and function. So now see, let's see, this is a cell and injurious stimulus is coming to the cell. Okay, so the cell will basically try to adapt itself to the injurious stimulus so that it can remain viable, it can survive. The cell doesn't want to die, so it will try to adapt. So the by this thing adaptation, the cell achieves a new steady state which helps in preserving its viability and function. Okay, now if the adaptive capability is exceeded or if the external stress is inherently harmful or excessive, what happens? Cell injury develops. See, cell will try to adapt itself, but if the cell's adaptive capability is exceeded, it's finished, over, or maybe the external stress is so harmful or so excessive that the cell does not bear it, so what will happen? The cell will get injured. Okay, now there are two mechanisms of injury. One is reversible cell injury and the other is irreversible cell injury. In reversible, what happens? Within certain limits, injury is reversible and cells return to their stable baseline. So now the injury is happening. Okay, but if the injury is limited, like the span of the injury, time span for which the injurious stimuli is acting on the cell is very small. Okay, so it will cause injury to the cell, but that injury will be reversible and the cells will return to their stable baseline. Irreversible cell injury, in this, if the stress is however severe, okay, persistent and rapid in onset. Okay, so there are 3 points like severe, uh, this thing, severe, persistent and rapid in onset, it results in irreversible injury and lastly it causes the death of the affected cell. Okay, so these are the things in this slide. Let's move on to the next slide. So I've also prepared this like it's a flow chart basically. See, flow charts help us better understanding of the concept. Like you can remember text from all the textbooks, but once you see a flow chart with focus, then you will definitely remember it for a longer time. So let's say this. There is a normal cell. Okay, this is a normal cell. It is in homeostasis. It is resting in peacefully. Now a stress comes to the cell. The cell gets panic. The cell will try to adapt itself. Okay, so adaptation will happen. If adaptation will happen if there is an injurious stimulus, it will cause cell injury to the cell. Okay, and now the stress is not occurring directly, the injurious stimulus is happening, so the cell does not get time to adapt. Okay, so it will cause cell injury. Now, if there is stress and there is adaptation, but if a cell is unable to adapt, what will happen? The cell will not be able to adapt, so it will directly lead to cell injury. Okay, so stress can also lead to cell injury when the cell is has inability to adaptation. Okay, next, cell injury happened. If the cell injury is mild or transient, mild means of lesser magnitude and transient means of short duration, then it will cause reversible injury. And if the stress or the injury stimulus is removed, the cell will revert back to its normal cell. Okay, so there is three phases: normal cell, then reversible cell, normal cell, then the injurious cell, then the again the normal cell. Next, if the cell injury is very severe and progressive, then it will cause irreversible injury, and irreversible injury manifests itself as cell death. So cell death will happen. Broadly speaking, there are two mechanisms of cell death: necrosis and apoptosis. But the latest edition of the Robbins also says that there are more pathways of the cell death, like example necroptosis, pyroptosis, ferroptosis. So these are the latest advantages, but broadly there are two categories: necrosis and apoptosis. Let's move on to the next slide. Now see, this is also an image, a wonderful image from Robbins, derived from Robbins. So what this image is likely to telling us that, see, this is a normal cell, the plasma membrane is like intact and everything is like normal. Then reversible injury is occurring, the cell shape, structure and organelles, they are like changing. Okay. Then if the injurious stimulus is removed, okay, then the recovery will happen. Recovery of what? Recovery of this cell, and the cell will revert back to its normal cell. So it's like a cycle. Injurious stimuli for a short time, it will cause this thing, then recovery will happen and the normal cell state will be achieved. Now if the injury is progressive, okay, it is of not short duration, it is a long time and extreme injury. So what will happen? We can see there, this will happen, that is necrosis. Necrosis is what? Cell death. Cell death will happen. Okay, so for our first video, let us concentrate only on these two things. Okay, that is this part where, that is reversible injury occur, then recovery happens. Now let's move to the next slide. Okay, so when we are done with this, now first we will discuss about the adaptations of the cell. So the cell basically adapts by 4 different methods. Number 1, hypertrophy. Number 2, hyperplasia. Number 3, atrophy, and number 4 is metaplasia. Okay, so these are the basically 4 kinds of adaptations of a cell. So first we will move on to hypertrophy. See, this is hypertrophy. Now what is hypertrophy? Hypertrophy is an increase in the size of the cells. Okay, increase in the size of the cell leading to an increase in the size of the organ. So basically the cell is increasing in size. Okay, now hypertrophy occurs in permanent or non-dividing cells, that is cells which have the limited capacity to divide. Okay, so the cells which are permanent or which have lost their capacity to divide, they will adapt by hypertrophy. What is the mechanism behind this hypertrophy? It occurs due to increased synthesis of many cellular proteins, including the growth factors and the structural proteins. So the structural proteins, cellular proteins, growth factors, they are increased in the cell. So the cells will basically grow in size. Now, hypertrophy can be either of two types, that is physiological hypertrophy and pathological hypertrophy. Broadly speaking, that physiological hypertrophy means the hypertrophy is occurring due to some physiological cause, that is, it is not abnormal. The cause is normal functions of the body. And pathological hypertrophy is purely dedicated to disease. Okay, there is some sort of injury or disease and it is not normal, it is not occurring normally, so that will cause pathological hypertrophy. Examples of these are physiological. Number 1, uterus during the pregnancy. Okay, so when the female conceives, that is she becomes pregnant, we see that the uterus gets hypertrophied. So that is obviously a physiological cause. Okay, it's not a disease. Next, breast during lactation. When the female feeds the baby, during her lactation period, her breast tissues grows in size. Okay, so breast during lactation is an example of physiological hypertrophy. Skeletal muscles in bodybuilders. Okay, these are all example of physiological. Next, the pathological hypertrophy is left ventricular hypertrophy, as in hypertension or in valvular heart disease. So see, the hypertension is what? It's a disease. So due to hypertension, the pressure or the workload on the heart increases. Okay, or in, let's say, in this valvular heart diseases, the workload increases, so the ventricles, that is the heart muscles, will try to hypertrophy itself. Okay, by increasing its, see, increasing in size of the cells, not the, okay, not by increasing their number, by increasing the size of the cells. So this is totally hypertrophy. Okay, next. Now see, this is also an image from the Robbins. Okay, so what we are seeing, three images, A, B and C. In A, we can see the thing is shown here is uterus. So this is the normal uterus, the miniature one, like we are seeing. This is the normal uterus. Okay, and this one is the pregnant uterus. This large structure is the pregnant. So see, from this to this, from a miniature uterus to a giant uterus, it has hypertrophied itself. The smooth muscle cells of the uterus have hypertrophied itself to conceive or to carry the fetus. Okay, next we look on to this thing, B image. Okay, what is B? We can see it is a histological section or the histological slide of the smooth muscle cell of the uterus. So in this we can see that there are small spindle cells. Okay, spindle shaped cells. These are the smooth muscle cells of the uterus. Okay, uterine smooth muscle cells. In number C, we see that one thing you need to note here, that both B and C are of same magnification. It's many of you may assume that like C is like an enlarged or a magnified image of B. No, that's not the case. Here the B and C are of same magnification. Okay, so in C we can see we see that there are some large plump hypertrophied nucleus. Okay, hypertrophied cells of the this uterus compared to as of B. So this is of a normal uterus histology section, and this is of a pregnant uterus hypertrophy. Okay, let's move on to next slide. Oh yeah, this is also a great image from Robbins. What is it is basically telling? It is basically telling us the relationship between a normal myocyte. Look at this, the pointer. Normal myocyte, adapted myocyte, that is hypertrophied myocyte, reversibly injured look at this pointer, reversibly injured myocyte, and the dead myocyte. Okay, so these are the four things. And what are these three things? 1, 2 and 3. These are the cross sections of the muscle, myometrial muscles. Okay, these are the cross sections. So now let's look at this. This is a normal myocyte. Adaptation is happening in response to the increased load of the heart, increased load in the heart. So the myocyte has become hypertrophied. Compared to this, you can see that it has increased in size. Okay, the nucleus has been increased in size. The cell has been increased. Like cell swelling is occurring. Okay. Now here, what is happening? Ischemia is occurring, leading to the cell injury. Okay, and the cell injury is like reversible cell injury. So as compared to the normal one, you can see like there is also minute swelling present. Okay, next you can see that there are some white droplets. These are denoting the fatty changes which is occurring. Okay, so the difference we can see. Next, if this ischemia persists for a longer time, then this myocyte will tell, I can't tolerate this, I am going to die, and it is leading to cell death. Now this is a normal myocyte. This is a transverse section. Okay, transverse section of the heart. This is all these are transverse section. You see the normal, you see this one, hypertrophied section. Now you can see that this diameter, okay, this diameter of the left ventricle has been increased compared to this diameter. Okay, so this is the thickness of the wall of the this thing ventricle. Okay, so the wall of the ventricle is getting thickened in this case due to the increased load on the heart. Next, in this case we can see that it's basically looking like normal, but you can see that in this area, let me mark it with green color. What is this area? A yellowish area. It is an area of necrosis, liquid this thing, coagulative necrosis in the heart muscle. Okay, what is happening? uh, the the blood which should supply to this region of the heart is not reaching there. So no blood, no oxygen, no glucose, so this portion of the cell will die. Okay, so this is the cell death, transverse section of a dead myocyte, myocardial muscle. Okay, so complete with this. This is very important image which is also given in the Robbins. Next, move on to the next one. Now hypertrophy done, we come on to the hypoplasia. Hypoplasia is basically, it is an increase in the number of cells. In hypertrophy there was increase in size, in hyperplasia there is increase in the number of cells. Why this is happening? See, the cells have inherent property to divide. Now if the cell is active, it is actively dividing, and if any stress is occurring, the cell will choose the path of dividing. So basically hyperplasia, look at this on the pointer. Hyperplasia occurs in the dividing cells, that is cells which are capable of replication. So hyperplasia is increasing the number of cells, leading to increasing the size of the organ. In both the cases, hypertrophy and hyperplasia, the size of the organ is increased. The mechanism, okay, here the mechanism is it occurs due to hormonal or growth factor induced proliferation of the mature cell. So the growth factor will come to the cell, it will bind to its receptor in the cell, and it will stimulate the cell to proliferate, and the cell will divide. This is the adaptation. Now hyperplasia can again be of two types, physiological and pathological. Physiological is divided into two, hormonal and compensatory. In hormonal, the example is breast during puberty or in pregnancy. So the breast in during the puberty of a female, okay, it divides. Okay, it does not increase in size, the cell divides. So that is hormonal physiological hyperplasia. Next is compensatory one. Growth of the example here is growth of residual liver tissue and partial hepatectomy. Okay, so when we do partial hepatectomy, like a lobe of the liver is removed, so the other lobe, okay, the residual part which is staying in the body, okay, it divides by hyperplasia. So it basically tries to adapt itself, okay, to maintain the body needs. Next is this thing, pathological hyperplasia. Okay, so let me focus on to this portion. Yes, pathological. Most forms of pathological hyperplasia are caused by excessive hormonal or growth factor stimulation. So when there's very excessive hormonal secretion or the growth factor stimulation, okay, so the cell will basically divide by hyperplasia. Okay, and that is called as pathological hyperplasia. Example is increased estrogen secretion, which can lead to endometrial hyperplasia and which can further lead to endometrial cancer. The estrogen secretion will cause the endometrium, this thing. Now the estrogen here is basically the etiology here. Okay, it is the causating factor for this hyperplasia. So it will stimulate the endometrial to divide by hyperplasia. Okay, and excessive stimulation or long time stimulation then can also progress to endometrial cancer. Okay, so from hyperplasia it will move to dysplasia. Next example is increased androgen stimulation, which can lead to BPH. BPH is benign prostatic hyperplasia. So androgen stimulation can cause this. So we have done the hyperplasia also. Okay, next slide is atrophy. Now atrophy is the shrinkage in the cell size due to loss of the cellular substance, leading to decrease in the size. So in the first two cases, hypertrophy and hyperplasia, there was increase in the size of the organ, but in atrophy there is decrease in the size of the organ due to shrinkage in the cell size. See, cell size is shrinking, it is causing atrophy. Why? Due to the loss of cellular substance. Now, the mechanism is it results from a combination of decreased protein synthesis and increased protein degradation. Okay, so decreased protein synthesis plus means combination increased protein degradation. So the protein synthesis, formation of new proteins is reduced, okay, and the degradation of proteins is increased. So this is the mechanism how which atrophy occurs. Atrophy can be physiological and pathological. Physiological, we have seen that we know that our thymus atrophies, okay, the notochord atrophies, it gets reduced, diminished, or and gets totally eliminated. So that is example of physiological atrophy. Pathological can be senile atrophy, means due to age. Okay, due to age, the cells and tissues are going to atrophy. Pressure atrophy, when a pressure is applied to a particular cell or tissue, it can get atrophy. Decreased blood supply to leading to atrophy, that is ischemia, can also lead. Denervation atrophy, the nerve supply will be cut off, so the cells will basically then atrophy. Nutritional atrophy and disuse atrophy. Disuse atrophy means when a particular organ or a particular uh, part of the body is not used for several means for a long time, then that part gets atrophied. Okay, so if you imagine that if your this hand, if you not move your hand for much longer time, so your basically the muscles in the hand are not working. Okay, so the brain will get the stimulation that basically this is not our part of the body. Okay, so this signal reaches the brain, and now the muscles here will get atrophied. Okay, due to disuse of the particular part, so that is disuse atrophy. Okay, let's clear all the mess which I have created, and let's see the next slide. Okay, so this image is also from the Robbins. Now, this is an example of atrophy. A is normal and B is atrophied brain. Now, many of you will try to look at the same image, and you will tell, yeah, both of them are looking normal. What's the difference? No, but there is a minute difference in between the both the images. See, A is the normal brain, B is the atrophied brain. See, you can see here, this is the sulcus. Okay, this is basically the sulcus in the brain, and this is the gyri. Okay, this is what is the red colored is the gyri, and green one is the sulci. So the gyri are the elevations and the sulci are the depressions. Okay, so now as you can compare with the A and B, you can see that the sulci has been widened, okay, and gyri has been narrowed. Let me remove, then you will be able to clear all of see all of these things. Okay, done. Yeah, see this thing, look at the pointer, this is the sulci. Here you cannot clearly see the sulci. Okay, the sulci are narrow, here the sulci are very broad, widened, and the gyri have become narrowed. Here where thick gyri are present, here gyri has been narrowed. Okay, so now why this happen? If we look onto the depth of this atrophy, so number B is a brain of an old person, okay, like around 70 years or 80 years. What is happening? Senile, okay, age senile. So senile atrophy is happening. Due to the age, the brain is getting atrophied. And you know that old persons have several diseases like the vascular heart diseases, or their vessels have become atherosclerized. Okay, so atherosclerosis also develops in the vessels. So the brain will get reduced blood supply. Some amount of ischemia will be there than of a young person. So this causes the atrophy of the brain. Okay, this is how we get to understand what are the etiology. In every case, you can try to understand what are the hidden etiology and what are the pathogens in that particular disease. Okay, next slide. This is metaplasia. Now, metaplasia is the most important among all the adaptation. What is metaplasia? Metaplasia is a see the pointer. Okay, metaplasia is a reversible change in which one differentiated cell type or mature cell type is converted into another type. What is the mechanism? I think the differentiation is this thing. The definition is clear. One differentiated cell type is converted into another type. Maybe one epithelium will convert into another epithelium. One mesenchymal part will convert into an epithelium. An epithelium can convert into mesenchymal, possibly. Mechanism. The mechanism is the reprogramming of stem cells to differentiate along a new pathway. What does it mean? Okay. See, when a injurious stimulus or the stress comes, the cell will try to adapt itself by metaplasia if it wants. Okay. So what it will do? It will signal the stem cells. Okay. It will reprogram the stem cells, and the stem cells, instead of forming the earlier epithelium, that is earlier cell type, will form a newly differentiated cell type. Okay. So both the cell types are different. Now trans differentiation is not occurring. That is, one epithelium is there, now tomorrow you see that epithelium is converted into another epithelium. This is not happening. There is reprogramming of stem cell to differentiate along a new pathway. Okay, so phenotypically you won't see that what today is one epithelium, yesterday is another epithelium. The earlier epithelium or the cell type will die, then the stem cells will synthesize or divide to form new epithelium. That is called the reprogramming along a new pathway. Okay. And in this type of cellular adaptation, a cell type sensitive to a particular stress is replaced by another cell type better able to withstand the adverse environment. Okay. Most common example we see, like, let me zoom in this image. Okay, the example, most common metaplasia is basically seen in smokers. Okay, a lot of you people have been smoking for a long time, and probably you are smoker, so this topic is important for you. So in the smoker, what happens is that the trachea and the bronchi, they have epithelium. What is the epithelium? Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, columnar cells with cilia. Okay, so this is the epithelium of the trachea and the bronchus. We generally call it as the respiratory epithelium. Now this is converting into stratified squamous epithelium. So see, the respiratory epithelium, which was earlier columnar and ciliated, is now converting into stratified squamous epithelium. Why this is happening? Due to, see, in smoking there are several toxic and noxious chemicals. Okay. Now when the tobacco smoke or is inhaled, it reaches your trachea, bronchi. So the ciliated columnar cells get irritated. Okay, and then they try to adapt by metaplasia, and thus they form stratified squamous epithelium. Now you would be looking like, yeah, this is a good thing. No, but see, this thing has cilia. What is the role of cilia? Cilia, by its movement, it see, like some foreign particle is ingested. So cilia, by its movement, it throws the foreign particle out of our body. Okay, so that function is lost. Now columnar epithelium. Columnar in epithelium, in respiratory part, we see that there are several goblet cells. Goblet cells are responsible for secreting of the mucus. That mucus causes trapping of the foreign particles, and the toxins can be trapped inside the mucus and then expelled out of our body. So this function is getting lost. So there is like, we cannot say that there is always a profit. So in general terms we can say that metaplasia is a sword. It is like a, means walking on a sword. Okay, double-edged sword. Like this side is also a sword and this side is also a sword. So you don't have the way. It's not that ki metaplasia is always beneficial. Next example is a Barrett's esophagus. Now, on long-standing GERD, that is gastroesophageal reflux disease, stratified squamous epithelium of esophagus is converted to the columnar epithelium. Okay, so you see here that now here the stratified squamous epithelium is present, and it is converting into columnar epithelium of the esophagus. Now the etiology or basic cause here can be several, like family history there can be, but here one point to mention is GERD, that is gastroesophageal reflux disease. The acid content from the stomach gets reflects into the esophagus, so the squamous cells in the esophagus will get irritated, and then they will convert into this thing, columnar epithelium. Okay, now In first part, we have seen that in respiratory epithelium, stratified squamous epithelium is forming. So we tell that this is known as squamous metaplasia. That is due to the metaplasia, squamous cells are forming. And in columnar in this thing, Barrett's esophagus, columnar epithelium is forming. So we say that this is a columnar metaplasia. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. So see, this is an image. Okay, this is an image in the respiratory epithelium. We see that the normal columnar epithelium is there with cilia, and goblet cells are also there which secrete mucus, and they by their movement they facilitate the expulsion of the foreign material. Now this columnar epithelium is getting lost. See, squamous epithelium is forming, and now ultimately whole epithelium has changed into squamous epithelium. So this is known as squamous metaplasia. This is also image from Robbins, important one. Okay, so metaplasia, I hope you all got to understand this. Okay, next we move on to okay, this thing. Now see, reversible cell injury. What is happening in the reverse? See, the cell is trying to adapt. When the cell lost its ability to adaptation, or the cell is unable to adapt, then it will go into reversible cell injury. It is the stage of cell injury at which the disruptive function and morphology of the injured cell can return to normal if the damaging stimulus is removed. If the stimulus which affects the cell is removed, then the cell can revert back to its original position. This is basically reversible. The term itself is saying reversible cell injury. Now what happens in reversible cell injury? Three points are important to mention. Number one, if there is short duration ischemia or hypoxia, so there should be any injurious stimulus. So let's say the injurious stimulus is ischemia or hypoxia. Wow. Now see, ischemia means reduced blood. Reduced blood means reduced oxygen. Blood is not coming. The nutrients are not reaching the cell. Okay, glucose is not reaching. So glucose gets metabolized by the glycolysis pathway, and oxygen is also required in the electron transport chain to generate the ATP. So glucose is responsible for generation of ATP in presence of oxygen. So both of them are not reaching. So it leads to a decreased generation of cellular ATP. Okay. This decreased generation of cellular ATP will cause decreased activity of sodium potassium ATPase pump. So ATPase pump, basically it works in the presence of ATP. Now ATP is not there, so this pump will not function. What is the function of this pump? Okay, this pump basically tries to efflux the sodium out of the cell and potassium into the cell. Now this thing will be lost. What will happen? Instead of efflux of sodium, now sodium will get influx into the cell, and when sodium gets into the cell, it carries water along with it. Okay, it carries water along with it and efflux of potassium. So when water is getting inside the cell, again entering, so it will lead to cellular swelling, that is hydropic changes. Membrane blebs will be formed. Membrane blebs are basically these things. When the water gets accumulated inside the cell, the plasma membrane, like it form a rupture, or it forms an involution, okay, outside the this thing, plasma membrane. So these are membrane bleb, like let me show you figure. Like see, this is a normal plasma membrane, but the membrane bleb is like this thing. So these out pouches in the normal, like this is a normal cell, and these out pouches, these are the membrane blebs. So these are forming because of increased pressure inside the cell. Next is myelin figures, you already know, and ER swelling, endoplasmic reticulum will swell, and mitochondria will swell. Next, this is happening. Next, what is happening that see, glycolysis aerobically is not happening, so there will be increased anaerobic glycolysis. It will lead to production of lactic acidosis. That is, lactic acid will produce. Lactic acid will cause the decrease in the pH of the cell. pH of the cell will be decreased. Earlier, let's say it was 7, then pH will decrease to 6. If more ischemia is there, then more lactic acid is forming, 5, 4, like this thing, the pH is decreasing. It will lead to clumping of the nuclear material. Nuclear clumping will happen. The chromatin material will get clumped. Next, what is happening? See, there is endoplasmic reticulum swelling. So the endoplasmic reticulum is swelling. it is getting enlarged in size. Ribosomes, where do they stay? They stay in the rough endoplasmic reticulum on the top of their surface. So there will be detachment of ribosomes from rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, detachment of ribosome. Now ribosomes are responsible for synthesis of protein, so there will be decreased protein synthesis. Okay, proteins are synthesized less. Lipids will be synthesized more. Okay, so this thing, lipids will be synthesized more, so it will lead to fatty changes in the cell, ultimately in the tissue, and ultimately it will clinically manifest in the organ. So these are the basically the thing. Let me remove all the signals which I have created. Okay, so now you can clearly see what are the things. Next, move on to the slide is like this thing. This is an image also from the Robbins, and these are showing the kidney tubular cells. Okay, so number A is the normal kidney tubular cell. You can see the nucleus is there and the cytoplasm is there, and these are the this one is the lumen. Okay, so it is the lumen, and these are the cells. Okay, and these are the normal cells. But in B, what is happening? There is ischemic injury. Okay, ischemia is occurring, so ischemic injury will happen. What is this causing? It will cause reversible cell injury if the ischemia is for shorter duration. So the difference you can see in between them, like the lumen is, the margins of the lumen are not very clear. Okay, so infiltration of this is happening. Okay, we cannot see clearly the margins. The cells you can see different compared to this, like this cell. Okay, what is happening? The nucleus is increasing in size, the cell is increasing in size. Look at this cell, this one large cell. Okay, what is this? This one is a very large cell as compared to the small cells. Okay, so increasing the size of the cells is happening. Now the pinkish color is also increasing, this thing. What is this pinkish thing? In the cytoplasm, basically the eosinophilia of the cytoplasm is happening. Okay, so increased eosinophilia of the cytoplasm, surface blebs which we are seeing, and increase in the this thing, swelling is happening. Okay, so these are basically the changes which we would see in the reversible cell injury. I hope you understand. Okay, so this is also an image from the Robbins. It is also very important. This is a normal kidney tubular cells, and this is a reversible cell injury, RCI. I hope you understand today's lecture. So on subsequent lecture, I will definitely be discussing about the irreversible cell injury and few small topics like intracellular accumulations, pathologic calcifications, and cellular aging. So this is the most important topic which we are covering. Okay, I hope you understand everything well. Thank you. Bye.